Aloha and welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started here in just a couple minutes. So go ahead and kick back, relax, and we will get started here shortly. Aloha, everyone, and welcome. We are going to go ahead and get started here shortly. But for now, go ahead and kick back, relax, and get started soon. Hello, everyone. If you're just joining us, we are going to go ahead and get started here shortly. But for now, just go ahead and kick back, relax, and we'll get started here soon. Hello, everyone. For those who are just joining us, we're going to go ahead and get started here shortly. Just go ahead and hang out for just a minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, everyone, welcome, and thank you for joining us here today to learn more about moving into your new home. My name is Amber Owens. I'm one of the admissions counselors here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And I am so excited that we have Kenny Lopez joining us here today from Student Housing. Just a few reminders for students. Don't forget that you all can see us, however, we cannot see you. And then in the Q&A that you'll see at the bottom of your screen, you can go ahead and put any questions that you have into the Q&A. There is quite a bit of you right now. We're at over 200 people participating in today's webinar. So we will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. And then also don't forget that the chat is going to be used primarily for links. So if you have questions, just go ahead and make sure to put them into that Q&A and we'll try our best to respond. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Kenny.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Amber. Aloha, good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you all are joining us. As Amber mentioned, my name is Kenny Lopez, and I serve as an assistant director in student housing. And I will be with you all for the next hour-ish to hopefully answer some questions about living on campus here in the fall. So hopefully I will get to a lot of your questions. We have a very short presentation for you all. I'm going to start first with a quick overview to our website, which is the first centralized place that you can find the most helpful information about your student or yourselves moved to campus. So this is our homepage here. As you can see, our URL is manoa.hawaii.edu/housing. That is our homepage. All of you have already applied for housing, or if you haven't, that's where you apply. So I'm going to talk over communities, which I think is one of the most important tabs for you all. I'm going to select Halealoha just for simplicity's sake, so that you all have a general idea. These are the circle towers that are pretty landmark on campus for us. All four of these towers are identical mirror reflections of one another, so they all are pretty much the same. And as you can see below, you have their meaning. So they're all named for the 4 main Hawaiian islands, the island of Hawaii, Oahu, Kauai, and Maui. And it's something important you'll see here is the address to each one of these buildings. So you can see that information there, where the community desk is located, as well as the on-call number. And more importantly, is the breakdown. So some of the demographic information that you'll find in regards to how many students live in the buildings, the years they were built and remodeled, and some of the specifications, features, furnishings, and then the rate for the academic year. This is a really cool feature that you can click and drag a 360 view to the actual residence hall room, where you can see kind of the different pieces that are connected to in the room, as well as walking distance to different eateries, as well as main central locations around campus. And again, you can do this for any community. So if you're assigned to Hale Aloha or you're assigned to Freer Hall, you're still certainly able to do so. You can look up different room types and configurations and all of that jazz through that. The next tab that I'm going to talk about really quickly is campus life. I think this one is really helpful for folks, specifically when you go to the move in/move out tab. We have something down here on what to bring. So here, there's some suggested items of that you should bring with you when you're coming to campus. As an example, all of our beds are twin extra long, so making sure that you don't just buy twin bedding, but twin extra long. Certainly fans, mirror, microwave, some of those things are on here. And also for you to note that there are a few of our communities that do not have elevators. So if you do have need for elevators and you're placed in one of these communities, certainly communicating with our office to be relocated or talking about that as well will be helpful. So we have some information there. Some important contact information, which I'll go over as well in our presentation. So just a quick little overview to our, again, as I mentioned, our housing website, which is the main place that you'll find super helpful information, the first starting point for your arrival to campus. And with that, as I mentioned, I'm going to go straight in onto our presentation now that will hopefully answer some of the questions that you all may have. So session overviews real quick. So I'll talk about movement information, some changes to our community standards, which are our rules and policies that we have on campus in the residence halls. I'll go over some real quick FAQs and some of the questions that we typically get asked quite a bit of. And then an opportunity for you all to ask other questions that you all may have, since I know there may be a lot of those, and I already see the Q&A is up to 29, so we'll certainly help answering those questions for you all. All right, so move-in. So move-in will occur between Monday, August 16th through the 22nd. Move-in is very specific for us according to what building you're assigned to. As you can see here, if you're for your hall or any of the Hale Aloha towers, you're moving in Monday through Thursday. If you're in Hawaii or Johnson Hall, you have your dates there. Hale Lalima or Gateway, and then Wainani, you have your dates listed here. Again, all students who are moving in will need to make an appointment. If you have been contracted already, the students have been emailed a link to a system that we use. It's called Sign Up Genius to schedule their check-in appointment. Those appointments are on a first-come, first-served basis. So please make sure that you are signing, or your students are signing up for a time that you're able to make it for the entirety of that time. It is approximately an hour-and-a-half block. The reason why we give you a significant block is for physical distancing more than anything else. So we have a queuing station where we then go through the process of checking you in. Then you are queued to go into your residence hall, giving carts to go up the elevators and do all of that stuff, where you will not have the large crowds as people have done or are accustomed to in the past. So it is very, very important, again, that every person moving in has signed up for a time through our Sign Up Genius, and that you are able to be there at the beginning of that time block that you signed up for. Again, as I mentioned, all students are expected to sign up for a move-in time. Slots are on a come first come, first served basis in order to minimize crowding in our residence halls. And the students have been sent all of this through the UHM email address. We ask that students please check their Hawai'i email address very regularly. That's where all of the information will be sent to them from admissions, from housing, from all academic departments. It will all go to the hawaii.edu address. A few changes to our community standards given our pandemic. So face coverings are required still for our students anytime they are in a residence hall. So for that, it means if the student is leaving the room to go to the restroom, they are required to wear a mask. The only time that they can have their mask off is if they are in the physical room. Because of COVID, again, we have a little bit of a no guest or visitation policy, which means that if I live in one of the Hale Aloha towers and I have a friend in the other one, I physically cannot go into the room to visit them. If we want to socialize, that has to be done outside. Again, just given the spread of COVID and just for security reasons, we have made the decision that we cannot have any guests in the building. The only exception that we do have is on move-in day. If student is moving in, we'll pick on Amber as an example. If Amber's moving in to Freer Hall, Amber can have 2 guests or helpers on that specific moving day come to assist her in moving in. For that, the guests will be given wristbands, so they will be able to come in and out of the building that day only to help her move in. After that, they will not be allowed back into the residence hall, unfortunately. Quickly, I'll talk about some safety and security measures that we do have on campus. We do use a multi-location key swipe in order to have some safety and security in our buildings. You have to use your key to get into the front door, to the elevator, to the stairwell, to your specific door, as well as the bathrooms and things like that. So we do take safety and security very seriously on campus. Our hall staff do community walks or duty rounds throughout our residence hall multiple times a night, just to ensure the safety of all residents on campus, our facilities, and everything else. Manoa does not have a police department, but we do partner very, very closely with Honolulu Police. We do have a Department of Public Safety that, similar to housing, does provide rounds around the campus to keep us all safe and secure as we go about our academic journeys or living here on campus. So a few of the FAQs that we have. So I will mention that the state of Hawaii as a collective is using the Safe Travels Hawaii program, which means that if you are coming to the state of Hawaii as of today, so I'm going to speak very clearly that as of June 16th at 1:13 p.m., if you're coming to the state of Hawaii from out of state, you are required to have a negative PCR test from an approved testing site 72 hours prior to your last leg of your trip before arriving on campus. I know that's a lot and very specific, so bear with us, we'll walk you through it, as well as you can go to just Google COVID-19 Hawaii and you'll see all of the different regulations and processes. With that, if a student is not exempt or a guest is not exempt, you are not, and I repeat, you are not able to quarantine on campus. Because of the close proximity to other members, of the shared nature of our residence halls, no persons are allowed to quarantine in the room or any residence hall. The next piece is when will I find out my room number? Room numbers are not given out in advance. You will find out your room number when you arrive to campus and you would check in, which is why I mentioned in the beginning of this session when I went over the website, going on to the housing website to find the building address is all you need. When mailing items, I believe that's the next one. Oh, okay. When can I begin shipping items to Hawaii? We kindly ask that you not ship any items to arrive to campus prior to a week before your check-in date. Reason being, we just don't have the capacity to store tons and tons of packages and mail here. So we ask that please, that you kind of pack it or schedule it to get here about the time that you're checking in so that you won't have any problems with items being returned because you shipped them here a little too early. In terms of shipping items, I know this is a big one for Amazon and some of those other retails. Please make sure that it is the student's official name that you're putting on the package as a recipient. So in this case, we use Amber Owens as her name. If she lives in Freer Hall, the address is 2569 Dole Street, and not a family nickname or Pookie Owens. We don't know who Pookie is, unfortunately, and we will return that package if we don't have the student on our system. Where can I find a suggested packing list? If you visit our website, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a what to bring to campus list. Again, these are suggestions, but we strongly encourage folks to look through that and see what items that you can bring and what items that you shouldn't bring to campus, which can also be found there. All right. And as I mentioned, I wanted to provide the majority of the time to answer questions that you all had. Here is our contact information. The URL for our website is manoa.hawaii.edu/housing. There's 2 email addresses on here, and I'll explain kind of the difference. UHMSH is our main housing email account, and that is for things like assignments, for example, or payments, things like that. That's where you would reach out to. reslife@hawaii.edu is one that I'm actually monitor, and that's specifically for things like move-in appointments, move-in. I need to contact my RA, my residence director, things like that. That's it for me. That's a place you would go for that. If you email the wrong one, it is not a problem. We will always send things back and forth amongst ourselves as well. So not a problem at all. And our phone numbers are there as well. And after that, I will open it up for any questions that you all may have.
All right, wonderful. So it looks like we have a lot of questions. We actually have over 100 questions already. As students, I know you guys have been asking a lot of similar type questions, so we're going to try to answer the questions to the best that we can, of course. So the biggest question is that we keep receiving, and I know it really depends, especially in a year like this year, but what is the latest date that students can expect to hear about their housing assignments?
Sure. So housing assignments are done on a rolling basis. So please bear with us. Right now, we just signed around 4 yesterday. So they're going because we have to give every person also time to then submit their $400 deposit. So that's what slows up the process a little bit. So just bear with us. You will continuously, please check your hawaii.edu email address. That's where you'll get all that information. So is there an end date? Not really. We will try to get that information out to folks as soon as we possibly can.
Absolutely. And of course, students are wondering if they've applied by the May 1st deadline, should they be concerned over housing? Is it guaranteed? Is it not? What advice would you give them?
Sure. At this point, I would not be concerned. If for some reason you will not get housing, we will also let you know where you stand, or if you're on a wait list or next on deck, things like that, we will let you know. If you are concerned about where you stand, I would also encourage you to call our office, 808-956-8177, and they can certainly tell you, hey, Amber, you are number 600 on the wait list. That's quite far down, so the possibility of you getting housing may be slim, or they will tell you you're number 14, so the chances are high. So they will be honest. We are not in the business of sugarcoating or hiding things from folks. We will let you know that there is a chance or there isn't a chance. So I would encourage folks to do that if you are concerned. I mean, it's still way early for us, so I would wait for a little bit.
Absolutely. I was going to say, students, I know I constantly get emails asking about it. So by all means, do not stress yet. It's still very early. I was actually surprised you guys even gave out assignments in May. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Good job for doing it so quickly. I was like, wow, I was telling people like end of June, July.
Yes.
So students, do not worry. It's still well over 2 months before the start of school year. I know you're very excited. We're excited for you to come join us as well. But just because if you see your friend gets it, do not stress that you haven't received yours yet. That's the biggest piece of advice I have, because I know Kenny and I both receive emails every single day saying, my friend got it, why haven't I? And there's a lot of factors that go into assigning the rooms that you guys don't necessarily know about. It's not kind of like a one click button and everyone gets assigned. It's a very thorough process that they have to do. So much respect to our student housing team. We appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
So some other questions, of course, is a common question. I know we don't really have much information on it, but just so that way people know, we are still looking at the questions, of course. The question is will there be roommates for this year? Do we not know? Is it still being talked about, or what's happening?
So again, as I mentioned, as of today, so we are June 16th, we will not have roommates. However, that is likely to change, or that could change, just given where states are with vaccinations, with numbers, with tiers, and all those different pieces. I would encourage folks to check email regularly. That's how all the communication will come out. Hawaii.edu has the message will typically come out from the president of the university system on what the guidelines and changes will be. That's what I encourage folks to do at this point, unfortunately. I wish I could provide a more definitive answer, but at this point, we know that we have single occupancy. However, we do anticipate that changing for spring or potentially for fall. We just don't know just yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So students, definitely please bear with us. As soon as we know, honestly, you'll know pretty much right then and there, because it'll be all over the Hawaii news, I'm sure. And then, of course, we will absolutely make an announcement to you all as well. So don't worry, you'll probably hear at the same time as we do. So
Probably.
we're all in this together.
Yes.
Yeah, so some other really great questions that I've seen come out is, let's see, just making sure we're not repeating any of them too much, is I know you mentioned that to not ship items, more than a week in advance prior to move-in. And students, just so you guys know, to try and plan around it-ish, just so you guys know. So those who are not from the state of Hawaii, Amazon can take anywhere between 3 days to 14 days, depending on the time of the year. So especially don't order it too soon, because we see the 14 days and you're like, oh no, I have to order 14 days in advance. But usually they say 14 days and it still delivers within 3 to 5. It's usually fairly quick. So don't go based off of the estimated times always, because it's faster. But yeah, would you advise students just to purchase things once they're physically here, or what things would you recommend, especially for things like fridges and such?
Sure, absolutely. For fridges, microwaves, larger things like that, I would encourage folks to get them when they're here. We do have Target, Walmart, Costco, Sam's, all those different places that you can easily buy a lot of those things when you're here. I'm from California, so I'll just say that the sales tax here in Hawaii is much cheaper than California, so I would encourage folks to think of that as well. We also do partner with like Bed Bath & Beyond and a lot of those other places to do some of that work. We also have an opportunity for folks to buy items through a partnership that we have with On-Campus Marketing. On-Campus Marketing is a system that particularly works with college students and college universities to get all the things that the student needs. So all of those items that you prepay will be here already for you when you check into your residence hall. So that's one less thing you have to do. You go on that website, you're like, I'm going to Manoa, here are all the things that I want. You pay for them and they will be here when you get to campus. So that makes it very simple to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say all the delivery services nowadays are fantastic. I know Instacart now can pretty much do Costco, Sam's Club, all of those. And then of course, Target now has their own delivery service. So mainland folks, all of the same delivery services you guys have on the mainland. I couldn't say that last year, but this year we can definitely say they are there and they are available. And it's helping the local economy too. Everyone wins in that situation. So yeah, definitely take advantage of the cheaper taxes here in Hawaii. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I know other questions, of course, is that on the website that you were showing us earlier today, does it provide the exact size of things? So say somebody's wanting to get a mini fridge, are they able to know exactly what the height limit requirement is?
Yes, so I will bring it back up on the screen for you all. Give me 2 seconds to share my screen again, and then I will actually show folks where all those pieces are. All right, so if you go to the Move In tab, what to bring, you'll be able to see here that for example, a microwave, there's a limit one per room, and it must be FCC rated at 700 watts or less. And for a mini fridge, again, one per bedroom, it cannot exceed 4.5 cubic feet and must be Star Energy compliant. So this is a place that you can find all of that specific information on wattage and all of that stuff.
Right. And did that include the size for bed sheets as well?
Yep. So it has the measurement. So it's all twin extra long. So anything twin extra long will fit. Yes.
Right. Now, kind of changing over into a different topic, just kind of talking more about actual move-in date.
Sure.
I know you mentioned that it depends on which building you're in, and then of course you can sign up on Sign Up Genius is the website. Is when you guys send out the housing contracts, is
Sure.
the Sign Up Genius link included in that housing contract email, or when should they expect to receive it?
It is not. So it does. It is a separate process. So once you've been contracted, you paid your deposit and you've done all of that, then I manually will go into the system and send you out the link to sign up. So so for the folks who recently paid, the round 4 just went out yesterday, as I mentioned. So for anyone who's already been contracted, you should have already received it. For folks who are currently in the process, that is again a rolling basis for us.
Right. And then also in regards to that, if you don't mind reiterating, I know you mentioned that, of course, students will not be allowed to have guests throughout the semester, at least at this time. That's the rules. But for move-in date, they can have have some people assist with the move-in by receiving wristbands. How many people was it that can join them for the move-in date?
Absolutely, it is 2. So unfortunately, we know that we may, there's people who are like, well, my grandma wants to come and my parents want to come, and my siblings. Unfortunately, we have to limit it to 2. At this point, again, because of physical distancing, we want to have as few people in our communities as possible to make the move-in process as seamless as possible for individuals.
Absolutely. Perfect. So thanks for reiterating that.
Absolutely.
And just confirming, just making sure we say it in all ways. If parents wanted to come and visit their students, say later on in the semester, say like October or November, can they still visit with their student, but just not inside student housing? Is that correct?
That is correct. So again, as of today, parents are not going to be allowed into the building after their moving day. The student can come and go and things like that, but going into the physical building, unfortunately, the answer is no.
Clarifying that, of course.
Clarifying the clarification, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And now a big question as well is, say if they, receive the Sign Up Genius link, they register, sign up for, the move-in date and time. But say if they need a little bit longer for the move-in time, what is their best way to handle that?
Sure. So the specific move-in time, I'm going to pick a time randomly, 8 a.m. So if the time is 8 a.m. and so the first half an hour is staging to get you to right place and do all the paperwork, and then the remainder of that time is essentially for you to have what I call gold star parking, where you're right in the front of the building, unloading all your items. After you're done with that, you can move to the parking structure and you can still go back into the building. So that designated time is your allotted time to have no obstructions, no other people there. You just go and move into the residence hall and not have to wait in the long lines for elevators or carts or things like that, which is why the numbers are rather small for each individual time block for that very specific reason. So if you need additional time, you can still come in after your move-in time to bring items into the residence hall, things like that. But we need to space out folks as much as possible.
And then, say for example, worst case scenario, as we all know, planes can get delayed, and then for those who haven't been visiting in the state of Hawaii recently, sometimes depending what time you land, those lines to verify that your negative COVID test can typically
get lengthy, yes.
Yeah, it really depends. I think it as long as 2 to 3 hours, not to scare you all, just warning you in advance, of course. But say if for a situation like that were to occur, where a student was getting a later flight, they had their move-in date time, the plane got delayed, then they got delayed in that. Are they still okay to check in at any time as long as it's after that point, or how does that work necessarily?
I would encourage them to call us. So we will have folks move in. It's all hands on deck. So we are here in a variety of different capacities, answering phone calls, and emails. So I would encourage someone who does know that they're missing their move-in time to either email reslife@hawaii.edu or call us at 808-956-8177. Yeah, and then we can help troubleshoot and navigate that process for individuals to figure out the next available time slot for them to move in, because we do understand that life happens and things happen that are out of our control. So we certainly aren't going to be like, well, figure it out. Like, we will certainly work with you as best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate you explaining that. Now, say for example, if people already bought their flight and they were, say, moving, an example, they wanted to move in on the 19th, but then all the dates available, slots available for the 19th were already pre-filled. Can they still move in the 19th, or would they have to physically only come in on the date that they agreed to originally?
Sure. I would encourage, for those case-by-case basis, I would encourage them to email reslife@hawaii.edu. Again, as I mentioned, I am the one who monitors and responds to all of those emails. So I will happily work with individual families to figure out what we can do, because it also depends on how many people have signed up and spaces and all those other things. So we can work through that to see what we can do for them as best we can.
Well, yeah. So I think the moral of the story is, with a lot of questions, is if you're questioning something, contact student housing and
Just call us. Yes, absolutely.
yeah. And don't worry, students. I know that there's been stress about who you can call, who you can't. Student housing has always been available on campus as far as like being able to contact them and such. So definitely you can always reach them by phone. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Please.
Now, of course, of other questions that come along are things like meal plans. Do you know a little bit about meal plans and how that works?
Absolutely. So meal plans are 10, 14, 19, as well as the apartment meal plan. If you are assigned to Hale Waianae Apartments, you are not required to get a meal plan simply because you do have a kitchen in unit. Everybody else is required to have a meal plan. The standard meal plan is 14 meals a week. That is 2 meals a day. So a student in that does go into effect on Sunday and ends on Saturday night. So if you use them all, great. If you don't, those do not roll over. You start again the following Sunday morning. If for whatever reason you do want to change that meal plan, you must email uhmsh@hawaii.edu in order to get that meal plan changed. It does have to come from your hawaii.edu email address. And we just encourage you to put your name, first name, last name, your student ID number, and essentially explaining that you would like to change up or down your meal plan accordingly. And they can certainly help you with that.
Wonderful. Now,
So sorry, let me add a few more things. Sorry, I
yeah.
got distracted. Another important thing to know about meal plans is we do have 2 all-you-care-to-eat dining facilities. So we do have Hale Aloha Cafeteria as well as Gateway Cafeteria. I encourage folks to use those 2 because that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. You can go in there, bring your laptop, your study group, go in there, work on whatever you need to, as well as continue to eat. So we do have a registered dietitian that does work with us. Her name is Donna. I'm sure they'll probably have a session later on in the Wednesday webinars where she will talk about if you do have specific dietary restrictions, they can certainly work with you on those. I know we typically do have a vegan, vegetarian, and a meat option at pretty much every meal, as well as salad bar, dessert, soft serve ice cream, juice, cereal, bread, bar, sodas, things like that. So we do have those options as well. Students can also use their meal plan at places like Campus Center Food Court, Starbucks, or the market as well.
Well, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
I know, and I think you already mentioned, but just to make sure, if students like select a meal plan, then all of a sudden, like a week later, they're realizing, hey, I chose, 14 meals per week, but I'm definitely not utilizing all of that. Can I downgrade it at a later time?
And you can. If you email us on Wednesday, it won't be downgraded to that following Sunday. So just to know that that cycle needs to end before we can make that modification.
Oh, wonderful. And then, of course, I know you mentioned that was great for those who have dietary restrictions. So students, if you do not worry. We definitely have plenty of options available for that, which is great. And moderator, if we can get links for the meal plans as well as what students can bring and cannot bring in the chat, that'd be really helpful. And so students, we're going to go ahead and place that link in the chat. So feel free to go ahead and refer back to that link. By all means, we don't want to go over every single small item of what's allowed and what's not allowed. Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, you guys can go ahead and check that link that was just posted in the chat with the move-in procedures and such. The meal plans. Wonderful. And so I know a big question as well is, of course, I know we were talked about mailing stuff. But when does each resident do they get a PO box necessarily, or do they just address to their name? What do we do if, say, for example, a student has the same name as another student in that same building?
Sure. That typically doesn't really happen. So what we do is we don't get PO boxes, for example. We do have mail boxes in each one of our residence halls. So for example, Amber will get the combination to that. So that is for letter mail, things like that, if folks still do that. For larger items like packages, things like that you get from, I'm gonna pick on Amazon. We get them all to one centralized location. We log them into our system, and Amber will get an email that says, "Hey, Amber, you received a package from Amazon. Please come pick it up at said and said location at this time." Amber will bring her student ID to us. We will scan it and give her her package. So we do not have Amazon lockers, any of that stuff. So that's currently our process that we are using for mail and package pickup and delivery.
Thanks. Thank you. And then students are asking if they are assigned a specific building, are they able to change the building, and how does that work?
Sure. Currently, we're not able to change anything up until we do have something called the transfer process, which we will begin approximately 2.5 weeks into the semester. At that point, we will then open up what we call the open transfer process, where students can then choose to go to a different building because they have friends in that building or so on and so forth that are available.
With meal plans, do they begin as the second you move in, or when is there a specific date that they officially start on?
It will begin on that Sunday right before they move in, so they will be active when they move onto campus.
Perfect. Now completely shaking it up on you. I just kind of keep you on your toes. Okay. Where would a student safely keep a bicycle or moped in the residence halls?
Absolutely. So bikes and mopeds cannot be brought into the residence halls, obviously. So what we encourage folks to do is buy a good lock. That is important. Amber and I, ironically, both went to the same undergrad institution, so we know about U-locks. Certainly get a U-lock. Those are the best. We encourage folks to please make sure that you're parking in appropriate locations. And if you're locking it appropriately, you'll be okay. Those are the safer places. We do have a lot of moped and bike theft on campus, and that primarily is because students aren't locking them up or just placing them pretty much anywhere. You can easily pick them up and take them. So if you're locking them appropriately, we strongly believe that they will be safe.
Now, kind of switching over to a little bit, because I know I see that we're getting a lot of questions about COVID. More so, it's in reference to safe travels, Hawaii, and such. Is students once again, as of June 16th, you know, and this knowing our luck, they may make an announcement pretty much right now and may change things. We'll see. Is I know with us, you can only, as of technically even yesterday, those who are residents returning to the state, who are fully vaccinated, who received their vaccination, both shots 1 and 2, or just 1, depending on if it's just Johnson & Johnson, can return to the state without taking a negative COVID test. But just to reiterate that, it is returning residents. So say if you are an out-of-state resident and are now moving into the state, you are not a returning resident. If you got your vaccination outside of the state of Hawaii and are now trying to bypass it, do not get your vaccination twice. It is not safe, nor is it recommended. So if you are an out-of-state resident and you are moving to the state of Hawaii, at this time, as of today, at least right now that we know of, haven't checked the news yet, you will still need to take a negative COVID test that is not a university requirement, that is a state requirement. So just really keep that in mind. Say if you arrive to, the island in July, or you arrive to the island, I don't know, first week of August, whenever really. If you take that, COVID test, then get approved for it when you enter the state, you do not need to take a COVID test again to come onto the campus. It's just more so you need it prior to entering the state. We do not, please correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, but we don't really check to see if you did your COVID test and such. That's a state, they will check you physically at the airport. So we'll go ahead and post the link in the chat for State Travels Hawaii, where it can show you which locations are state approved to take the test, which ones are not. Well, it'll just more so say which ones are approved. And so make sure, please check it. I've seen several things that happen on the news where people will come into the state, take their negative COVID test, but it's from a non-approved facility, and they will be either turned away or they will have to go into quarantine for the 10 days. So please do your research ahead of time. Not too worried about our students. They're usually really right on it. But things may change.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
go ahead.
To what you mentioned, the COVID test has to be a PCR test. It cannot be a rapid test. It cannot be any of those. So those are some of the hiccups that people have encountered. So certainly, and when you arrive to campus, so once you arrive to the state of Hawaii, you will get, after you finish the airport stuff, you will get a green check mark that says that you're exempt from quarantine. Once you arrive to campus to check in, that's what we'll be asking to see, that you have been given the green check mark. Once that green check mark is there, you are good to check in for us. So we will follow the state of Hawaii processes when it comes to safe travels.
Wonderful. Thanks, Kenny. I just want to make sure. I was like, oh
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
It's a state thing and not necessarily a university
Not a
thing.
university.
So definitely, yeah. Last year was a little bit different for those who were the fall 2020 and deferred to fall 2021. It's completely different. It changes week by week. So definitely just keep checking that Safe Hawaii Travels website that we'll put in the chat. So I'm kind of switching it up a little bit now, going back to a little bit more about, say, parking. I know we always constantly tell students parking is extremely limited, especially mainland students. Do not bring your car. It is a very expensive process. I will let you guys know from firsthand experience. Right now, shipping cars to and from the island is actually backed up. It can take anywhere between 6 to 10 weeks is the current processing time. Last I talked to the port, when that was about a month ago, I talked to the port. So just don't do it. However, for move-in date, I know many people are asking about, will there be parking available for move-in date specifically?
Sure. So specifically for move-in day, yes. So which is why we ask folks to come at their allocated and designated times, because then you get that gold star parking, right? So we blocked off everything so that you can easily just park, unload, and move things up. And then after you're done, we ask folks to move cars to the parking structure. So again, as I mentioned, for moving day, absolutely. In terms of a student wants to get a parking pass for the academic year, that is based on seniority, so in class standing. So the further up you are in class standing, the more likely you are to get a parking pass. So if you are an incoming freshman, the likelihood of you getting a parking pass is slim to none, realistically. And they're also really expensive. So I would encourage you all to not bring a vehicle, get a vehicle when you're here. It really is not essential. So through your fees, you're already paying for what's called a U-Pass. So it is a sticker that's placed on your UHID that essentially is already associated with your fees. You show that to the driver, you're able to ride the bus to go pretty much anywhere on the island. If you're going to Waikiki, if you're going to Ala Moana, you're able to do that. If you really need a car or a vehicle of some sort, because you're working off campus, things like that, I would encourage folks to look into a moped, honestly. They are exponentially cheaper, parking passes are cheaper, and much easier to get around, honestly, than a vehicle would be.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah. And students, honestly, it's the bus, whatever you want to call it, is a really great resource. Both the on-campus housing as well as, or not on-campus housing, on-campus shuttle as well as the off-campus city shuttle, both are fantastic. So do not worry about the safety of that. I personally take it all the time. I actually prefer it. I don't like looking for parking too often. So uh, just know that you'll be in good hands with them. So other questions we have is, I know the big question, especially as students have now registered for, most students have registered for classes, is if now they're seeing like, hey, I'm taking a lot of online classes for fall, but I already, submitted my housing deposit, the $400 housing deposit. And now I'm looking at maybe just coming for spring when campus is fully reopened again. What advice do you recommend to them who are thinking about canceling their fall and switching it to just spring only?
Sure. Um, I think use, I think, how am I going to phrase this? Use your best judgment, honestly, right? Do you coming in spring? You absolutely can. However, that does depend on space availability and limitations, right? Given the fact that we will probably be at capacity for fall. If folks do leave, then we'll be able to bring in more folks for spring, but we don't know that necessarily. Modality right now may be online. That could change given the fact of things are changing so rapidly in the state as a collective. So things could change as well. So I would encourage folks to make that decision, whatever's best for you. If it means retracting your or deferring your housing for from fall to spring or something like that. But please let us know if you want to remove your application, and then you would have to reapply for spring. If you just if you don't communicate with us, we will assume you're here and you will continue to get charged. So please, communication is key throughout this whole process. So just let us know. And honestly, like what to do, it honestly just depends. It depends. Sorry, that's not a good answer, but it just depends on a lot of factors.
Yes, absolutely. So I would just clarify, and I know as June was asking, in the state of Hawaii now, as of pretty much a few weeks ago, they made an announcement about a card called the Holo card. So the Holo card is for using it for the bus. So like on the mainland, I know especially in Northern California, you guys have a card called the Clipper card. This is now our version of the Clipper card, but Hawaii style. But that is going to be completely separate of your student ID. Since you guys are a student and you can use your student ID to ride the bus, you will not need to get a Holo card. So do not, if you see ads about that, don't worry about that. That is going to just be more so for in-state residents that are not students. So you do not need to stress about that. Also, Kenny, if you can just clarify, I know we've had some questions come up where students are saying that they've called the student housing office asking about their spot, if they're on a wait list or where they're at exactly on the line, or the
Sure. Where they're at, yeah.
Yeah, and then they've been denied. Is there a best response for that, or?
If for anyone that's here with us, I would encourage you, email me at reslife.hawaii.edu, and I will certainly work to figure out where you're at on, if you're on the wait list, if you're on the next round, kind of where folks are. I don't know necessarily why people have been denied that information, but would certainly work with you to let you know where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, say for example, I know we don't really know too much about the roommate situation naturally,
Sure.
and we're not going to know more till later on. But I think the biggest question students are having, which I don't know if we have the answer yet, is say if, say if this fall we do go single style,
Sure.
but then in spring they go double style. Are they able to then move rooms? Are they going to be encouraged to still stick to the same room, or do you have any insight on this?
Sure, absolutely. So I know that we have talked about that a little bit more. You will be able to, we will have a transfer period, as we mentioned before, to allow folks to move together if they wanted to. So we would call that more of a consolidation process. So if I know that I want to room with Billy, and we both have our singles, but we'd rather be together than with a secondary person coming in, we can go ahead and do that. So that's a possibility, yes.
Another really good question I see is for those students who are saying coming to move in by themselves, say if their family is not able to come with them for personal reasons or whatever reasons.
Absolutely.
Is there going to be anyone who can assist them with move-in, or are they going to be responsible for kind of doing it on their own?
If you come during a designated move-in time, there certainly will be folks to help you. We have shuttles around campus that will help you get to where you need to go, things like that. You will be responsible for getting your own ride share or taxi from the airport back to campus to the check-in location, and then from there we will take care of you as best we can. Certainly, as an example, some of the buildings that don't have elevators, if you need help carrying things up the stairs, we will certainly try to get folks to help you with that as much as we can. They're not going to move everything for you, but they'll certainly help carry things up or things like that.
Absolutely. I would like to say, students, don't worry. We are all one big giant family here. You will have assistance. You're not going to be just on your own. Okay, move in. All right, see you later. We're all still here for each other to help each other out.
Absolutely.
So some other questions I see, I answered them already, but I want to make sure we can have it for audio as well. Is for like say the holiday break, say for like Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and spring break, will students be allowed to remain in the residence halls for that time period?
Yes. So we are open from August 16th through the end of May. So students can stay with us for all breaks, winter break, Thanksgiving break, spring break, things like that. We are still fully functional and operational. The only difference to that is the dining halls. I will make that exemption and add that on here. When class is not in session, the meals, the cafeteria stops meal service. So students will have to find stuff on their own during those breaks.
Definitely something important to think about. Speaking of which, I know there's lots of questions about, say, kitchens, and I know there are definitely options for students, even if they're shared. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more about which residence halls have kitchens and how that works exactly?
Sure. So in-unit kitchens are only in the Wainani apartments. Every other community has a communal kitchen on the roof or the basement in the case of Johnson, or second floor for Gateway, that the students can use. We do have very minimal pots and pans and some of those very basic things that students can use. So every building does have a kitchen for students to access.
Wonderful. So I know students, for those who are staying over Thanksgiving break, because it's a very quick break, it's only a few days. So if you do that, I encourage you guys to definitely try and do like a Friendsgiving type thing, take advantage of those kitchens and resources. It's just a little fun. If you have no idea how to cook, mac and cheese is always a safe bet. Now, also, I know a really big question, of course, is how and when they're able to pay for their student fees or their student housing fees. I know that was a big question we got last week when we were going over paying your tuition. Is the student housing going to be included with the regular tuition payments, or how does that work?
Good question. I actually don't know the answer to this. That's a good stuff for me. So I do know that the deadline to pay for housing is different from I don't know. I honestly don't know, and I don't want to like get the wrong information out there. I know that you can pay for it all at once, or you can pay for it by semester, depending on what you prefer. I do not know the specific how that functions because I've never paid for it here. So I'm like trying to figure out like how that works. If you do have specific questions on payment specifically, please let me know. Shoot me an email and I'll be happy to get the right answer for you all. I just don't want to give false information to folks.
Completely agree. It stumped me as well last week. That's awesome.
I was like, oh, I don't know.
No worries, dude. We'll definitely work on getting that question answered. Also on the YouTube, when we post up the recording, once we get the answer, I'll go ahead and make sure to put that in the description as well, so you guys can all get that answer as well.
Thank you.
And then I know a big question as well is, say if students are looking for off-campus housing, or if, say, for example, they applied to housing super late, or for some reason they didn't get housing for whatever reason, what type of off-campus living, like, do we partner with any off-campus apartments, or is there anywhere that the students should look for off-campus housing options?
Absolutely. So we do not, unfortunately, we do not partner with any off-campus agencies or anything like that at the moment. I know it's something that is very different for Manoa than it is from a lot of different institutions, specifically on the continent, is we are not surrounded by a residential community, if you will. So we don't have a ton of apartment complexes, a lot of that stuff where folks can typically live. So folks may have to commute a little bit, which is why we strongly encourage, and research shows that if a student does come and lives on campus for 1 year, they are more likely to graduate on time, have a higher GPA, and get more acclimated to campus, and if they choose to live off. We do know that based on a variety of different reasons, i.e. I applied late, I don't know if I can afford it, things like that, folks may have other options. I would encourage folks to look on different websites, different things like that, to see if you can rent a room, an apartment, things like that. I would encourage folks to try to go to reputable sources first, and not something that looks or feels a little shady to individuals. But again, we don't partner with any of them, so I don't know specific places to go, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was gonna say students, there's a lot of a lot of different options. Like Kenny said, just definitely make sure it's not, if it seems sketchy, it probably is sketchy. So just trust your instincts on that. I know that we have some different housing complexes that are part of our visitors guide, but like Kenny mentioned, they are not sponsored officially by the university in any way. There's no partnership, but you can always type in student housing on Google for UH Manoa, and some different options will come up. But like I said, not sponsored by us directly or associated directly. Some other questions, this is more fun type questions, which is always fun, exciting. So we know, of course, if there's students are not allowed into the other residence halls, they're only allowed into their own just during this time, of course.
Mhm.
Are there going to be activities for those in the residence halls to help them get to know each other? Or how is that going to be? We know it's modified from the normal year, but how is that going to be held?
Absolutely. So we are actively working on all of those different things for what we call HWEL, so the Housing Week of Welcome. So we do have planned already a plethora of different events for students. So every single night from Monday through Sunday, we do have different what we call late night events. So those are events that happen from 9 to 11 on getting students connected, acclimated with their peers. Each residence hall is required to have different events as well. So there will be a lot of different events for students to get connected to, whether that be in the virtual format or in person, which we're keeping our fingers crossed that we will go that route.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely students, keep checking your emails for more information will be announced hopefully soon. As soon as we know, you'll know as soon as we know. So just kind of reiterating a couple of things. I know some people came late today, but if for those who have not received their housing assignment, when should they expect within the range to hear their housing assignment?
For assignments, we will keep rolling our base. We will keep doing rolling assignments until we are full, and even into when school starts. So just keep hanging in there, keep checking your hawaii.edu emails. We will try our best to get that information out to folks as soon as we can. Once we get a little bit closer, we may shorten the window of time that folks have to pay their deposit, just in order to allow more folks to get assigned faster. So again, just bear with us as we continue to roll through that.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And so students, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. We've had over 300 questions asked. So there's so many different questions asked. I know there's so many questions of one is move-in and it varies per student. Also, just one last point is for student IDs. Once you guys are officially registered for classes and you guys have paid your tuition, that is when you guys are able to pick up your student IDs. However, I know especially those who are coming from, say, off campus or the mainland, you guys may have to wait until you're physically on campus. So there'll be more notifications that will be released about that as it gets closer to the start of the semester. I know for those students who are local, maybe you're like, oh, I'll get my student ID now and then I can ride the bus for free all summer. It doesn't work that way. You only get the bus pass for those semesters that you're physically registered for. So just keep that in mind. And so in the chat, if you guys have additional questions, you'll see links for the move-in procedures, what you can bring, housing Q&A or FAQs, housing services, and more information on the pre-order linen program. And of course, I just want to say a huge shout out and thank you to Kenny Lopez, who is been able to share so much incredible and amazing information with us here today. I know he'll be joining us again next week for our parent Q&A. So families who are joining us here today, if you guys have more questions either about the admissions process, additional questions about student housing or financial aid, feel free to join us next week about that. But we hope you guys have such a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the fall. Aloha.
Thank you.